I wish Star Trek Discovery got to do the series ending they originally wanted. When Star Trek Discovery debuted in 2017, it promised to boldly go where no Trek series had gone before. For better or worse, it delivered on that promise, whether in tone, timeline, or storytelling structure. And while Discovery weathered its share of creative shakeups and divisive fan reactions, it carved a place for itself in the franchise's long legacy. But as the show concluded its fifth and final season in 2024, fans couldn't help but feel a tinge of bittersweet regret. Because the ending we got, while emotional, satisfying, and visually stunning, wasn't quite the ending Discovery originally planned. And I wish we could have seen it. A show that reinvented itself again and again. Before diving into the alternate ending, it's important to acknowledge just how unusual Discovery was. No Star Trek series had ever undergone such a radical evolution in such a short time. Starting as a prequel to the original series, it featured serialized storytelling, a gritty tone, and a main character, Michael Burnham, who was neither the captain nor the typical ensemble centerpiece. But Discovery was a shapeshifter. When showrunners Brian Fuller and later Alex Kurtzman changed course, so did the show. Season 2 pivoted toward classic Trek optimism. Season 3 vaulted the crew into the far future 3188, a narrative leap that reset the board entirely. Discovery became a show about rebuilding, rediscovery, and hope in a fractured galaxy. That ability to evolve is something to admire. Yet it also made Discovery vulnerable to external forces, executive changes, production delays, pandemic complications, and ultimately the looming axe of cancellation. The ending we got. In the series finale, Life itself, Michael Burnham and her crew finally unlocked the mystery of the progenitors, the ancient race that seeded the galaxy with life and whose technology held the potential to reshape existence itself. In classic Trek fashion, the message wasn't about power but understanding. The quest wasn't about domination but unity. The finale gave Burnham closure, positioned her as a pivotal historical figure, and offered the audience a glimpse into the 33rd century with the introduction of Captain Raynor and the mysterious new Federation landscape. The final scenes, showing an older Burnham passing the torch, echoed the next generation's all good things and Voyager's triumphant return to Earth, bittersweet, poetic, and hopeful. But this wasn't the original plan. What the original ending might have been. Reports emerged during production that Discovery's ending was significantly altered after the decision came down to end the series with Season 5. Filming had already wrapped on most of the season when the cancellation was announced. The production team went back to shoot a new final scene, a coda, really, that would provide more closure. It worked, but it wasn't part of the master plan. According to those close to the show, the original ending would have left the door wide open. It was ambitious, forward-looking, and hinted at spin-offs and bigger arcs. We were supposed to get a better look at the new 33rd Century Federation. Raynor's role would have been expanded, possibly setting him up for his own series. And Burnham's journey? It would have gone on. Perhaps she would have become a Federation ambassador, or even joined the mysterious higher-dimensional beings hinted at throughout the show. Maybe we would have seen Saru and Trina's diplomatic legacy shape a new era of peace. Or had a storyline where the Federation had to confront its own ethical failings, not unlike the themes explored in Deep Space Nine. There was talk of legacy, of future generations, of Michael Burnham becoming part of the mythos passed down to a future Starfleet we'd never meet, and we were robbed of all that. Why it matters. So what's the big deal? The finale we got was beautiful. It honored the characters. It closed the arc. Isn't that enough? For most shows, maybe. But Discovery wasn't most shows. From the beginning, Discovery made bold narrative choices. It wasn't afraid to rewire canon, explore non-linear storytelling, or ask existential questions. A show that embraced change so fiercely deserved a more daring finale. Not a truncated epilogue tacked on after the fact. Ending a show early isn't new in television, especially in the age of streaming. But when it happens to a Star Trek series, it carries more weight. These are sagas that define generations. Discovery took us further into the timeline than any Trek series before it. We were finally seeing what the galaxy looked like 1,000 years beyond Kirk and Picard. And then, it just stopped. That feels like wasted potential. Not because the ending lacked meaning, but because the future it hinted at will likely remain unexplored. The missed opportunity of Captain Rayner. Callum Keith Rennie's portrayal of Captain Rayner in Season 5 was a breath of fresh air. Rough, principled, and deeply wounded by his past, Rayner clashed with Burnham in all the right ways. He embodied the frontier spirit of early Trek while bringing a post-collapse grit to the 32nd century. There were subtle signs that Discovery was setting him up as a long-term player. Maybe even the lead of a follow-up series focused on re-establishing Starfleet values in the wild frontier. But with the series ending so suddenly, we only got the faintest taste of what he could have become. Imagine a Star Trek Legacy spin-off featuring Rayner, Adira, Book, and a few new recruits patrolling the edges of Federation space. A show with the philosophical depth of TNG and the serialized grit of DS9. That was the opportunity knocking in Discovery's final season. And the door never opened. Burnham deserved a bigger goodbye. Let's not forget, Michael Burnham was the first black woman to lead a Star Trek series. So Nequa Martin Green gave one of the most emotionally rich, resilient performances in the franchise's history. From mutineer to captain, Burnham's arc wasn't just about personal redemption, it was about legacy. And while her final scene with her grown son offered a glimpse of peace, it also reduced her journey to a footnote in Starfleet history. A quiet retirement. A name etched into records. But Burnham was Discovery. She was the engine that drove its heart, its mission, its emotional compass. Her farewell should have matched the scale of her transformation. The original ending, whatever it truly entailed, was reportedly far more expansive. One that didn't just honor Burnham, but elevated her into the pantheon alongside Kirk, Picard, Sisko, Janeway, and Archer. Instead, we got the whisper of a goodbye. Tasteful, yes, but nowhere near loud enough for a character who rewrote the rules of Star Trek. A legacy unfulfilled. The real tragedy of Discovery's ending isn't that it was poorly done. It's that it was clearly rushed. The show was just beginning to explore some of its most compelling themes, rebuilding civilization from cultural trauma, balancing science with belief, and evolving identity in a post-scarcity world. The potential of the progenitor tech could have launched several seasons of ethical quandaries and cosmic mysteries. The new Federation, still fractured and mistrusted, offered fertile ground for political and moral storytelling. We'll never know how those stories would have unfolded. More importantly, younger fans discovering Star Trek through Discovery might never get to see how those themes grow. The show planted seeds for a future it would never see bloom. And in doing so, it became a kind of ghost ship, a vessel filled with ideas now drifting in the vast canon of what could have been. Hope in the subspace winds, yet all is not lost. Star Trek is a franchise that has always come back. Cancelled series find new life. TOS, Enterprise. Characters return decades later. Picard, Lower Decks. Strange ideas become fan